What's up, producers? Welcome to a new episode. Thanks for joining me again. Today we're looking at episode 12, and we're going to switch gears on a different style plugin. We're going to be looking at Audified MixChecker. So today our main focus is looking at our song and seeing how it's translating on other playing devices. I think sometimes that producers get so caught up in their studio, in their headphones, wherever you're working. At the end of the day, that really doesn't matter how expensive a studio gear you have, how much money you've spent on speakers, etc. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, your songs have to translate, as we all know, on different playing devices, phones, computers, to cars, and all of that different type settings. So that's what we're looking at today. This plugin is pretty nice to kind of get a general feel for how your track sounds on those different devices. So let's jump right in. I'm just going to play the track as usual. I'm working with my song that's out right now. We're going to use that as an example. Now, the cool thing about this plugin, guys, is we can throw it on any channel. Right now I have it on the master, but what you can look at too, generally your kick and your bass, lower frequencies, you could put this on that channel strip itself and kind of solo and dial that in and listen to the bass soloed, playing in a car setting, on a different speaker, on headphones, etc. So let's just get going here. Okay, let's real quick take a look at our interface. Quite simple, as you guys can see in the plugin series so far. I'm doing quite simple stuff, and I think the funny thing is a lot of the simpler plugins work best. But this isn't really a plugin that's going to manipulate distortion, or it's going to be an EQ plugin, anything like that. It's a MixChecker. It does straight forward what it needs to do. So let's look at the interface real quick, guys. Simple bypass. These are your settings here if you guys want to check for update, website, etc. Manual. Mono button, very, very important. I have a mono button here in my studio on my controller, but if you guys don't have that, that's so useful to have. Right? Always crucial to check your mixes in mono. Now over to the compensation settings, guys. This is quite unique. It depends what you're working on in your studio. For this example, I am not going to use the compensation settings because I have a high quality studio monitor at an 8-inch sub. I don't need to do that. If you guys don't have that in your studio, which is completely fine, this is what you'll use to compensate for not having that. So when you switch these on first, you're saying, hey, I'm wanting to sound on a 5-inch studio monitor, I'm wanting to sound on these headphones, etc. I have high quality stuff, so I don't need to put the compensation on, but make sure you take note of that depending on what you have in your studio. Now the last one over here, the simulation, this is what it's turning the sound, filtering into that setting. Really straightforward. You guys can select the device that you want to check your mix on. For example, we have these speakers here. These are the classic ones like the Yamahas, for example. Mix cubes, which I have, so you can check on those, headphones, smartphone, etc. All the cool stuff. So when I'm working on a record, I'll go one by one and kind of simulate and check on stuff. Will I be writing with these filters and simulation on? Not really. It's more of just a checking thing at the end of the day to see if what I worked on and produced translated. And over the years of working on records, you'll start to understand where you need to saturate a bass, to saturate an 808 so that it comes through on a phone. You'll kind of start dialing that in. Okay, so let's move forward to also the volume at the bottom. You guys can switch that on here. So whatever you simulate, you can bring the volume up or down. Just like if you're in your car turning it up, you want to hear how that's going to sound. So let's go through a few, and you guys can hear what the simulations do. Now, the interesting thing that I really pay attention to when working with a plugin like this is these three settings, and probably the headphone ones. If you consider just the amount of your fans, friends that are listening to your records, I guarantee the higher probably above 50, at least 50% are listening on their phone or their Bluetooth speakers or their headphones. You got to think of your listeners and fans don't have what you have in your studio. Regardless of what you have, my fans aren't going to be listening on these VXT8s or these HS8s, whatever you have. Your fans are going to be listening on a lot of what's right here. So if your mix is not sounding good on here, that's not good. So pay attention. Mostly in here is where I always like dial bass lines in and maybe go one by one on the bass and the kick to make sure it's coming through on a smartphone. And you can hear my bass a little bit. And of course, you guys know that's where your bass lines are heard the least is on the computers, iPads, smartphones, etc. Headphones, you can definitely hear them, but it's really these two that are crucial. If I go to the bass line, so everything's good. The sub is obviously going to be lost on basically these three. That's just facts. No matter what song, your sub, the feeling of the sub is going to be completely gone pretty much. You should be able to hear it relatively on here. These ones, yep, all those check out. I'll check mono. It's good there. So you guys can see, rinse and repeat of how you can use all of these one by one. I would do maybe the same exact 1 minute check I just did there, and maybe the kick, etc. So you don't always have to think about just throwing this on my master channel over here. It's good to do that to check the overall sound, of course, but remember what the stems are that could be causing that translation for it not to be working well. So make sure you're looking for the stems that possibly are getting lost. And it's usually kick bass, depends on the type of record you're working on. But yeah, so I'll go through all of them on the main parts here. I like checking the entire record. Majority of the time, I won't do this for the sake of the video. It'll just take a lot more time when you guys are probably already getting this. But majority of the time, I'll let my record just play. I'll loop the entire 3 minutes or so, and I'll just sit back and I'll go through these different simulations, and I'll tell myself and write down notes saying, okay, when I flipped it to the verse section, and then I went to the smartphone, this and that disappeared. I'll take note of that so I can go into the mix and possibly dial it in. These two speakers shouldn't sound that great. That's kind of why the mix cues are made. The Avantone ones I have are amazing. That your mix, the playback isn't supposed to sound alarmingly amazing. It's supposed to pick out those mid frequencies that you're missing out on, mid-high. That's kind of what they're designed for. They're really useful. So those two settings, when you flip on them, you're like, oh, my track's not sounding amazing. Don't get too turned off by that. These two settings are kind of that classic sound where you're kind of look for the mids and the highs and kind of detail work there. But like I said, guys, pretty much these four settings right here are what I'm living in the most, because I know my fans and just people in general listening to records are probably going to be simulating through these. That's what they probably use when they're listening to records on Spotify and whatever it may be. So that's pretty much it for today's plugin, guys. It's quite simple. Make sure you try it out. I believe you can get it on various websites, Plugin Boutique, etc. I think ADSR, all those ones. So try it out. I think it will help if you guys are questioning why you're taking your record to a car, to a friend's house, and you're hearing different things, because there's so many different playback devices, but you got to remember your record can't only perform well in your studio. That's kind of the last place you should be thinking about. When I'm producing, I'm thinking about clubs, cars, thinking about the iPhone, the smartphones, all that. That's what I keep in the back of my mind on top of what I'm working with my headphones in my studio. It all has to kind of come together. But that's it, guys. Thank you for watching episode 12. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.